Right. Have you all been seated? Well, great. So I give the scave to Jacqueline Dietiger.
Thank you, Linda. I'm so happy with the broken glass. In the Netherlands, it means good luck. So we'll have a great next hour session. Thank you, Linda and Roger. I don't know if Roger left the room maybe, but for inviting us to come here to Sweden. And I must admit, it's my first time in Sweden, so I'm a little nervous, but mostly very excited to be here and to moderate this great panel we have for you the next hour. You might be wondering, why is this Dutch lady from a small town, Wassenaar, that you've probably never heard of, why is she here in Stockholm being moderator for a panel about philanthropy advice by banks? Well, I started my career in philanthropy by accident, like probably most of you, 20 years ago. And about 15 years ago, I started philanthropy services in the Netherlands. I was a pioneer, looking back, and I was happy with Roger's comment this morning. The pioneer, it's not an easy task. I've been working for foundations and for private individuals. And when I started, and I would tell people I'm a philanthropy advisor, they would pretty much laugh at me. When I told them that I studied philanthropy at the Free University, they would think that was a silly study. And I must say we've come a long way in the world, in the Netherlands, and probably also in Sweden. A few years ago, I set up a network of the philanthropy banks, the philanthropy charity desks and philanthropy services of the Dutch banks. And it was quite unique. And we wrote an article about it for Philanthropy Impact magazine. The article's here. It's somewhere here on the table, so please take a copy when you leave. And Roger picked up the article, and he thought, well, we should get these people to Sweden to show what we're doing in the Netherlands and also to show what we're doing globally. We tried actually to get a Swedish man on the panel from a Swedish bank. It did not work this time, but I promise you I'll be back next year. And after this great session, I'm sure Swedish banks will pick up philanthropy services. Before I tell you what we're going to do in the next hour, I'd like to invite the panelists on stage. Jasmijn, I know Sylvia's hiding, but Jasmijn Melse. I know her well from, she's from ABN AMRO Mees Pierson, which is the wealth side of ABN AMRO. And she's philanthropy advisor and really trying very hard and doing really well in professionalizing the field and expanding the team. Her colleague is actually here. She's our sidekick, Marianne, so we're happy she's here with us also. Sylvia Bastante, if you would like to join us here. Sylvia, we just met yesterday, but we did speak on the telephone. Sylvia is head of the philanthropy advisory of UBS Bank, and she's working globally. She has a team of about 20 people. She has a very international background, traveling all over the world, I assume, helping the ultra high net individual with their philanthropic journey. So the next hour, we will be speaking about what's going on with philanthropy services. We will look at the bank side. Why are banks doing this? Why do we feel that banks should be doing this? Maybe some of the challenges you have inside your organization, and how did you set it up, and what sort of activities are you providing for your clients? And also, of course, we will be looking at the client. So who is your client? How does the client find you? And what sort of questions do they have? And trends. And we heard some very interesting theory this morning, and I always like to use some of the practice to see if it fits with the theory. Before we start, and we do have some handouts also that you copied and brought, and it's on the table when you leave. For us, it would be very nice to know who is here in the room, because it's the first time at the Stockholm Philanthropy Symposium. So, I would like, somebody's waving already, hello? No? So I would like to know, are there people here who work in the financial sector, who are working at banks, family offices, or maybe they're charity lawyers? Could you please raise your hand so we have a few people here? Thank you. And I can imagine there's people working here at NGOs, maybe doing fundraising or in a board or director, working for charities. Yeah, so that's quite a lot of hands there. Who are you all from Sweden, or did people fly in from other countries? I know somebody came in from Kenya, Netherlands, and you're from France. Okay, and from Switzerland. So, from the US. Okay. Maybe strange last question, but who is a beekeeper? What? A beekeeper? Well, then you know what's my passion. Besides having my family, my husband, dog, my work, I also keep bees. And that's what I really love doing. And I was hoping to have a conversation about bees maybe at lunch break, but I guess not. So, and you also, you get out of bed in the morning and you love your work, helping philanthropists with their strategic journey. But I'm curious, people can read your biography in the program, but can you tell us a little bit more about your passion and your giving maybe, or maybe you're a volunteer at an organization? So we learn a little bit more about that side of you, Sylvia.
So like many of the philanthropists that we advise, my philanthropy or my involvement in philanthropy started with a moment of passion. And there's two causes that I personally support, also with my husband. The first one comes from my childhood. I grew up in Peru. And one of the earliest memories I have is being driven to school in the morning and looking out of the window and seeing kids out in the street. But I was still too young to understand that they were actually poor children living in the streets. I just thought, oh, these kids are so lucky. They get to spend the whole day outdoors. They don't have to wear shoes. They don't have to go to school. Why can't I be like those kids? So it's just this moment where you're just too young to understand reality. And so one of the organizations I still support today is an organization that focuses on street children in my home country. Okay. And the second passion I have is the ocean. I grew up by the ocean. Oh, yeah. And to end up living in Switzerland is a little bit difficult. And therefore I also support the cause of ocean conservation.
Okay, well, thank you. And Jasmijn?
Yeah, first of all, I wanted to say that it's really a pleasure to be here and to learn more about Swedish philanthropy. And I really wish we had such like an ambassador also in the Netherlands, or in Sweden, such an inspiring person. And I really like your question, because I was also thinking a couple of years ago, okay, if I advise others to give more strategically and to structure your donations, then I really should do this also with my own donations. So you have to practice what you preach. So, and I think because the growing inequality and distrust amongst people is one of the greatest challenges of our time. I donate some money to some peace organizations. And besides, I'm very worried about our online privacy and freedom of information. So I give money to digital human rights organizations. Okay. So Bits of Freedom in the Netherlands, and you have a European organization as well. And for a number of years, I was a volunteer at a homeless shelter in the Netherlands, and that was really like waking them up on Sunday morning and baking eggs. So
okay, good. So
that's about my own
experience, as we say. So the next, I think, 30 minutes or so, we're going to have a discussion with you about your work and what you're doing and the client. And then, of course, I hope we have some interaction to learn about the Swedish experience and see if there's a market for philanthropy advice in Sweden, how it is developed. So my first question, and maybe Jasmijn, you'd like to start. Can you tell us a bit more about why ABN AMRO started these services about, I think, 5-6 years ago, and what you're doing your activities, and please share that with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we started 5 years ago, and we are now a team of 4 philanthropy advisors and a head of philanthropy advice. And actually, I think if you look at the reason why we're doing this, it's actually pretty simple. If you look at our clients, so our clients are private banking clients. They are not foundations or charities. But if you look at what keeps wealthy people awake at night, I don't think it's how high their interest rate is. But it's really about questions how they give meaning to their money. So really questions on their legacy. What are they going to leave behind? Like what I'm going to leave to the next generation. And this is, I think, where philanthropy comes in. So by discussing philanthropy, you really deepen the relationship with your clients, and you broaden the relationship. What we see is you get access to the wife, to the rest of the family. And we had this example of a client, and for 40 years we were only discussing actually the family and bank affairs with the head of the family. And it was only a couple of years ago when we introduced philanthropy that his wife, for the first time, came to the bank. And she's actually running their family foundation in Mozambique. And then the second conversation we had, their 2 daughters, they joined. One of them had a background in development studies, and she was then so surprised to have this conversation on social change with the bank. And I mean, they are the clients of the future, but also by just better understanding their needs, I think we can better serve
Can
the
you hold on
families.
to that thought, and then later I'd like to hear what you're doing in the research and publications.
Yeah.
Sylvia, can you tell us how you started and
Yes. UBS has been providing philanthropic advice to ultra-high net worth individuals for over 12 years now. We were one of the pioneering banks on a global scale to do this. As you mentioned, we have a team of, I hope it would be 20, but it's not, it's just 15.
But you work for 5, right?
So in philanthropy advisory that are helping. And I think it echoes very much your experience. I think the reason the bank is offering the services, I think there's 2 complementary reasons. The first one is UBS happens to be the largest wealth manager in the world. And as such, you do have a responsibility to bring up the conversation with all your clients as to what they're doing with their resources to have a positive impact in the world. In this day and age with so many issues present, I don't think it would be acceptable that a bank that has the knowledge of the wealth of and has the trust of certain very influential individuals is not at the minimum bringing it up. So we cover not only philanthropy but also sustainable and impact investing. So on the one hand, it's I think almost a moral responsibility to bring up these topics, and on the other hand, there is always a business interest, just as Jasmine was explaining. Helping clients on a topic that they're really passionate about deepens and adds a lot of value to the relationship. And ultimately, banking is a relationship business as well.
So you're saying it's a moral responsibility of the bank to help their clients, their high or ultra high net worth clients with their philanthropic journey. Is there anybody here who would disagree with that? I'm wondering. No? No. Because in the Netherlands, actually, there's people who say banks should not be offering this. So it would not be so crazy to think it. There's somebody in the back there. Oh. Yeah, you can say it. We can hear. So. Yeah.
Wealth is generated, and that is in the finance sector. In the finance sector, then I saw a pressure coming from production and services and so on, and generate this enormous wealth in the finance sector. And where does it go? And I work with a project called the Birch Project, Studio Bjarka, and the birch is a fantastic symbol of giving getting energy from the earth, and then it gives back to the earth again. So I just felt that that could be a really beautiful symbol for
so it's
for the
generation,
yes, it's
generating
like the
wealth,
earth.
and you see a tree and it
Yes.
gives back. So well, thank you for this
Yeah.
lovely symbol. So thank you. And so besides advising your clients, you do also do research. You have publications. You support. There was the professor said there's not many philanthropists supporting philanthropic studies or philanthropy, but you also, as a bank, also support philanthropy in general. Can you please share with us what you're doing?
Yeah, we really think it's important also to add something to the philanthropy sector, at least in the Netherlands. What we see there is we have enough research on the giving behavior of the households, but not on the giving behavior of high net worth individuals in the Netherlands. And so we do every second year research with the University of Maastricht amongst our 700 private banking clients who are philanthropically active to see trends, what type of advice do they need. Every year we have a conference where the top 100 philanthropists of the Netherlands come together to share their experiences, share insights. And then on the, because we say we are a better bank for a better future, and to really walk this talk, what we also do is that all our services are on a pay-what-you-want pricing model. So it's really up to the clients.
Need to pay for this service. So
it's up to the client to decide what they think our service is worth it at the end, and then 25% of our revenues we invest in strengthening philanthropy in the Netherlands. So in more transparency and these types.
And the clients pay for this service? Do they?
Actually, they do. They do. And last year we did some evaluation on this, and they actually pay a little bit more than they would have done without the pay-what-you-want pricing model.
Okay.
But it's in particular important for philanthropists to take this first leap of faith with us, this first step, to actually go with philanthropy advice. So that helps.
Your research, is that also available in other languages, in English, for example? Or is it summary maybe?
For the 2014, we have an English summary. The interesting thing is we now recently finished our research in France, and we're going to continue this also hopefully in Germany, so then that will be available in English, I think, next year.
Because I know UBS, you've translated a lot of your materials. You have the Compass and research. Can you tell us what you're doing?
So in terms of research, we put out a number of guides to philanthropy that can help any philanthropist. So actually the Compass was an interesting experience. I joined UBS in 2013, and I found that my predecessor had created this very good guide together with FSG, Social Impact Advisors, and a university in the UK for philanthropists that starts by asking, what is philanthropy? How can you have impact? And guides you through all the questions. And I thought, but this is really great. We should, publish it externally. The first reaction I got is, oh, no. This is only for
ourselves.
Our clients. And I said, but this can be helpful to many other people that, may not be clients of UBS. In the end, we managed to publish it. And then there was so much demand from other parts of the world that it's been translated into 7 different languages. So that's the Compass, and following up on that, we have another guide on fundraising for philanthropists, because this is also a concern of many wealthy philanthropists.
Why on fundraising?
I think it's very interesting. We have our philanthropist community. It's a group of philanthropists and social impact investors from all around the world, all in the ultra high net worth and billionaires category. And the key concern these 350 members have when we survey them is how to find co-funders and collaborators. And my interpretation of that is, they're very wealthy themselves. But the reason they want to find other people to support the projects is essentially because it's a sign of quality. Because evaluation is so difficult, if I can convince somebody else that they should support the things I'm supported, then
Yeah.
possibly I'm doing something good. And that's where the idea for the fundraising guide came in.
But when you look at the theory, I remember the purple dots, I think, that the philanthropists are very much on their own, and I felt a bit sad for them. So I'm happy you're helping them, but are they really collaborating with others, or how do you see that? So are they, they're entrepreneurs, I'm going to do it myself?
Collaboration is a lot of what we try to encourage. So in addition to the one-on-one advice on strategic giving and how to think about their giving, the second thing we do is quite a lot of promoting collaboration. Part of it is this global philanthropist community where we...
Global philanthropist community.
Yes. We have over 350 members. From all around the world, and the purpose of the community is really to connect people that are doing similar work. I had so many experiences where I would meet, one philanthropist in Germany, one philanthropist in Switzerland that are doing work on the justice reform system in Colombia, and they did not even know each other. So it's
so
about
that's your role also
people.
to connect people and that they can learn from each other and share.
And on that note, the other thing we do is we do very exclusive events where we bring them together. We have our philanthropy forum in St. Moritz, we do one in the US, one in Asia. In total, we do like 60 events a year. Yeah. And usually they're targeted exclusively at the philanthropists themselves. And one of the things they love is learning from their peers. And I'll add one more point about collaboration. Yeah. In addition to the guides that we put out on philanthropy, we also do regional reports on philanthropy. And recently we were launching this one, which is Creating Impact Through Philanthropy, a Nordic Perspective. It was written with the Swedish Entrepreneurship Forum. And one of the really interesting findings that is different about the Nordic model of philanthropy is actually the high degree of collaboration.
Oh, very good.
Which is pretty surprising, because in other parts of the world...
Also for Sweden also,
yes.
I would assume.
Yeah.
So that's, Jasmijn, how do clients find you? Because you're a team of 4 or 5 people, you're of course also a large bank, and I can imagine some of the wealth advisors will not send clients to you because they want to keep the money, and you're advising the clients to give away the money. So I can imagine there's a conflict there. So how do you interact with your colleagues on that? And
yeah, so let me say something about our clients. I think working for a bank, I would say you have internal and external clients, and your internal clients are actually the relationship managers, so the bankers. So if they really know what philanthropy is about, and they know that it's just more than just giving away money, it's more than just matchmaking, finding some charities, but they really understand that it's helping your client to go from reactive to proactive giving. Just not saying yes to every fundraiser that comes along or to every charity that rings on the doorbell, but really thinking about the social change you're after, analyzing how you can really make that change, and it's only then that you find the right organizations. If bankers understand that then really philanthropy is a profession, then they will introduce you to their clients. And I don't know if you want to, if I shall share something with the audience about what type of clients we serve.
Yeah, let's yeah.
Because maybe it's helpful because it's so fascinating to hear what type of philanthropist you have in Sweden.
We spoke about types of clients this morning, the theory, and is that also something you see, the corporates, community foundations, but the private individuals? Yeah.
Because our clients are private banking clients who have, it's from 1 million and above. So it's not only the ultra high.
So you're 1 million and above and
50 million.
50 million and above. So okay, that's the difference there. Yeah.
So I would say our clients are very diverse, but you could say there are 3 categories. So you have the people who are really more thinking about what type of charities to include in their last will. For example, we had this doctor's couple without children, quite liberal, retired. They had in their last will a large foundation linked to our royal family, but they were not happy about it because they said we were Republicans, we don't want this foundation in our last will. And after sitting down with these clients and really going through what's really close to their heart, they decided to include in their last will an organization that's really focused on the debate in the Netherlands on euthanasia and end-of-life decision-making. Second type of clients are entrepreneurs. They're either just sold their company and see philanthropy as a second career, or they're still in the company, young entrepreneurs, and they want to set up a corporate foundation. And what is probably interesting for the audience to know is that the Netherlands has a really favorable fiscal climate. So you also see corporate foundations as you say IKEA? IKEA Foundation. It's based in the Netherlands. We see a large Japanese corporates coming to the Netherlands and setting up their foundation in the Netherlands.
Can you, I'd like to ask Sylvia to react to what you're saying of the type of clients.
Shall I just finish that the third category is really families who already have a tradition of philanthropy. So that's the three types.
Yeah, so in terms of the services that we offer, my team is philanthropy advisory. This is only for the extremely wealthy. However, we do have our own foundation, the Optimus Foundation, that offers services to all the clients of the bank, from retail clients in Switzerland.
What does it do, the Optimus Foundation?
It focuses on children under 5, it's education, health and protection.
Education, health and protection.
Yeah, and it's 18 countries around the world, and it's an extremely professional foundation, and also very focused on impact. So anyhow, so the services are offered to others, but what my team does, this one-on-one advisory, community, events, publication, is really targeted at this elite group. And the predominant type of people that make it into this bracket are self-made entrepreneurs.
Mostly entrepreneurs.
And it's usually first-generation self-made entrepreneurs who have the highest propensity to want to give back to society. And as you were saying, very similarly, some are looking at philanthropy as their second career. Others are really looking at everything they're doing in a very holistic approach. So they don't only look at their philanthropy, they look at impact investing, sustainable investing. They also look at what they're doing through their businesses. Even if they don't set up a corporate foundation, they believe that it's important to also behave like a good corporate citizen.
Do you find it difficult working with entrepreneurs? I work with entrepreneurs, and sometimes they're very impatient, or they find a good idea and they want to scale up all over Africa. Also, that entrepreneurs don't always just want to give money; they want to get involved. They want to fly to Greece to help refugee children. How is that? How do you
on the one
work?
hand,
and also maybe you have global differences. Also, probably.
Yes, you do have differences in types of behavior, but by and large, if they've been extremely successful entrepreneurs, they normally think that they can just turn around to the nonprofit or to the philanthropic sector and apply exactly the same approach. And a lot of the work we do is sometimes helping them understand that the worlds are slightly different, but also recognize that there's many other organizations and other players that have already been involved in that sector. So before you launched into something, it's at least, do a landscape of what's happening in the field that you want to go into. And the other thing that we try to always counter a little bit is many times people have the idea that the only way to be an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, is to have your own endowed foundation with your name.
Right.
And that's not necessarily true, especially now. There's many different ways. So we really encourage them to learn about the field that they want to go into before they jump in and put up a big foundation.
And what sort of questions do you get? Dame Shirley said it's really hard to give wisely. And sometimes I'm sure people come in, they have no or very little experience in this field, and you're so advanced in your thinking. How does that come together, and how do you help the philanthropist on her or his journey?
Actually, I would say, of course they have some questions, but I would say it's the other way around. Usually they don't know what they don't know. So they are they don't know how difficult it actually is to do good. So they start with their philanthropy.
Still a bit naive in the beginning.
And it's only then when they realize that you have a lot of questions, and that it's actually, if you analyze the social problem, that it is difficult to do good and to. So we did also this research in the Netherlands, and we found out that if you ask people who are philanthropically active, do you need any advice on this? 90% says no. But once they get into a conversation and get philanthropy advice, they all say they are very enthusiastic. So, and maybe, I'm not sure if that holds for Sweden as well, but in the Netherlands we say something like, unknown makes unloved. And it's only when they hear you have something like philanthropy advice and that it is a profession, that they really like the idea and understand the idea.
Them
exactly
with their giving. Yeah. And you, Sylvia?
I would echo that. I would say that the majority of clients or non-clients, potential clients that we end up seeing have no clue that philanthropy advisory as a profession exists, and that you have people who are not bankers.
Yeah, not bankers. Yeah, that's
my own background is working in development for big international organizations, for major NGOs, for foundations. Yeah. So, and that's the same background for my team. So, in general, these people don't know. Like, if they have a legal problem, of course they think, okay, I go get a lawyer. If they have a problem with their finances, they go to an investment advisor. It's not automatic that they think, I'm not sure my philanthropy is working. Let me go find a philanthropy advisor. The only country where this is quite developed as a market is the United States.
Yeah.
There are large philanthropic organizations, philanthropic advisory organizations. In Europe, it's not. Yeah. And in Latin America, Asia, and Africa, it's not either. So, in a way, what we do once the banker introduces us to the client and we start working with them, then they realize it's actually quite useful and quite important, and I'm sure they would be even willing to pay for it. But before, it's extremely difficult for them to even crystallize.
To imagine that this service exists.
It's necessary, yeah.
It may be interesting to
may I just say one point about it? Because I think the reason is you don't have like consumers who complain about your bad product. So it's the beneficiaries. Usually they don't complain. So that's why the critical feedback, the feedback loop is different for philanthropy.
I think there's that, and I also think that it depends on which tradition you're operating under. But in some parts of the world, it's the act of giving in and of itself is good. Mm-hmm. So the concern is not, what is the impact of my giving? My responsibility ends the moment. And the thing is, we think of elite philanthropists as if they were completely different animals to us, but in reality, they're not. When you walk down the street and you see a homeless person and they're begging for money, and you give them whatever, £5, €5, whatever it is, at that moment, you're just reacting to their need. Mm. You're not really thinking, okay, what's going to be the impact of my gift? So, we can't expect them to behave so differently. Can we talk about
impact? It's, of course, sort of a fashion word at the moment. Everything is about impact. But you see also trends. You've been doing it for years. It's the type of questions people are asking. In the Netherlands, for example, we have this whole movement, effective altruism. Mm. Is that something you share with clients, or how can you help them with that part? Also, maybe with the impact investing.
Well, we do, of course, discuss with our clients the whole value for money discussion we have with our clients. Like, okay, you can choose this or either this, but in the end, it's really like it's a personal journey, and it's where what affects them most, what is close to their heart. This is generally where they tend to be most successful.
That's exactly what Dame Shirley also said. Choose something that's you really care about. Yeah.
But I really see this growing trend where specifically entrepreneurs say, okay, we want to use different financial tools to make a difference. So instead of only donating our money, we also like to invest some money, and there's where impact investment discussion comes in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you can help them with that impact.
Yeah, for sure. At UBS, we're trying to mainstream sustainable investing at a minimum. Impact investing is a little bit more of a difficult proposition sometimes. I think people have very compartmentalized their view that one thing is to give money away and to do philanthropy or charity, if you want to call it that. A completely different thing is to invest for maximum return. And this thing in the middle, which is impact investing, is sometimes difficult. We see a lot of demand, but it doesn't translate into effective demand. Nevertheless, it's a field that's developing. It's a field that's growing for sure.
Okay. Are there any questions? I'd like to get some reactions to what we've been hearing, sharing. maybe you have Swedish experience. Ah, good. I see 3 hands already. 4?
Do we have mics?
Yeah, the microphone is coming.
Thank you. Hi. Excuse me. My name is Alex.
Can you say your name, please,
Yeah,
and where you're?
I was just getting
Oh,
started.
sorry. Yeah.
My name is Alex. I work for Civil Rights Defenders, which is a nonprofit here in Sweden. One of the questions that I think a lot of folks have who are on the NGO side is when you're presenting options to the clients, how do you make those choices? And maybe that's a very individual question depending on the client. And B, what do you present? Is it a brochure? Is it, an overview that you put together yourselves, or how do you go about that process?
Yeah, so the question is, clients have a certain idea, focus, and then you find organizations for them. And how do you find these organizations, or what do you present to the clients, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So shall I
Yeah,
say something
please.
about? Yeah, I think so. There are 2 elements here. So because we are part of a larger department in the Netherlands with 59 colleagues who do the bank affairs for charities, 800 endowed foundations and religious institutions. And they all would love to have access to us in order to get access to the major donors. From the start, we've been very clear that we want to keep our independence and that we don't fundraise for specific initiatives or organizations. But what we did find out, actually, is that after seeing so many major donors and philanthropists, we could share this knowledge. And so 4 times a year, we organize an event for the fundraising charities in the Netherlands. We explain the way we work, and we share our insights on major donor fundraising. And specifically what we offer to clients is we offer really project reports and charity reports. So we do sometimes a pre-selection for people's last will. We focus on their interest, and then we make a report. So we do make selections, and we've got an independent database where we work
I was
with.
wondering, do you use a database, international database, or?
In the Netherlands, we have a national database, but still, to be honest to you, we have over 40,000 organizations with a charitable status in the Netherlands and 10,000 fundraising organizations. So still, the question is, how do you stand up?
So if his
crowd,
organization
right?
wants to be in your database, what does he need to do?
Yeah, so
and maybe that's also for other organizations here.
I would say they're all in our database, but what is always important, of course, is not to focus on all the problems and how difficult it is to raise money, but because we get approached by fundraising organizations almost on a daily basis, it's also to stress why it's so important that you're out there and also have a strong profile on social media, be innovative in your field, and I always say, like, if you ask for money, you get advice, and if you ask for advice, you get money. So
Sylvia,
maybe
how
that's
is it for
helpful.
you? Do you work with databases? Do you provide clients with names of organizations?
So first thing I can say is that I myself was a fundraiser for Amnesty International, so I know the difficult spot of fundraising for human rights in particular. But we don't usually provide recommendations to clients, because the only way in which we could provide a recommendation or even options would be if we have conducted full due diligence, and we don't do that. The only place where we do that is Optimus Foundation. It's a corporate foundation that, they have a team of 25 people focusing on children, experts in the field. They can do the due diligence. My team cannot do that. We help the clients to think about how they should go about. So what we would say is, okay, if you want to give in this space, these are the type of criteria, these are the type of steps, this is how our foundation does it. That's one way.
They have to find their own way, organizations.
Now, in some circumstances, if somebody really comes and says, I really need you to provide me with options, we can do that, but in that case, we disclaim it very clearly, and we say, we source these options from our network, because just like myself, all my team comes from nonprofits and development sectors. These are organizations we know. We have not conducted due diligence. The choice is still yours. Yeah. So we really put the responsibility on their side. Now
you sound a little bit like a banker. No.
Well, you know,
What is-
it's also because we have a global operation.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
impossible.
If you're
Oh,
within one country,
of
maybe you
course.
can have an opinion. But
Yeah.
you know, if a client from
All over the world.
Sweden asks me about organizations in Kenya, what basis do I have with a team
Yeah.
of 15 to be able to provide a reasonable recommendation?
You're correct.
But let me give you two more
Yeah,
indirect
and then we do
ways.
have 3 more questions, huh? So we then
Just
yeah.
two more indirect
Yeah.
ways. The other one is we do organize very high-level events. And in these events, officially, there's no sales, no fundraising. And that's why the philanthropists themselves show up. But we do invite some organizations to present. And it always happens that relationships develop and things flow. And the other thing we do, similar to what Jasmine was saying, is we advise, whenever somebody sees my title, they think, oh, you can give me money. And I can't, but at least I can give you some advice on what are this type of philanthropists expecting and how to, I even correct pitches for some organizations.
Oh, really? You really help.
Well, we try to use
just,
the
your
role we have to
expertise.
do something good.
Another question. There were 3 more hands out there.
Yes,
Which,
here.
what-
I'm here.
Yeah.
where? Oh, yeah. It's a bit dark, so it's yeah. Hello.
I'm Caroline Cederloff with the Social Initiative, and we work in Sweden with philanthropy advice. And I was curious to learn from you 2 things, both what kind of services that your clients ask for the most that you provide, and also if so, how you work with external partners.
Okay, so the first question is, what is the type of service that clients ask for the most?
Yeah.
That's mine.
Well, just very general, because we had a look at it. It's like people were thinking of spending, let's say, maybe on a yearly basis, 10,000, 50,000 euros to maybe $1 million. They ask more for our charity reports, where we select a couple of organizations, or project reports. They have certain criteria, and we select projects. We do that also for foundation who's they say, could you make a yearly selection for us of the 3 best projects in Rotterdam on youth, for example. But I would say 50% of our work, but that's mainly for more the high net worth individuals, that is 25 million and above, who really want to set up their own endowed foundation, so their own money, and they only spend the interest rates on, or the interest they get on doing good. There, it's really to set up a foundation. So 50% of our work is really giving workshop to the family and the family members, and we actually write their giving plans. So in the Netherlands, to obtain a charitable status, you need, we say, strategic plan for your organization. So if you start a business, you need a business plan. So if you start your philanthropy, you need a giving plan. So this is the service we provide. So we write quite a lot of strategic
and
plans.
Sylvia, what is is it
So
similar, or is it a
slightly
different question?
different. The majority of people that come to us is when they're just starting. So I would say at least 50% of the philanthropists that we help, they're just starting and they have no idea. And then our service is really to help them plan strategically, to help them learn about the field, to connect them to other people that are doing similar things. So that type of service has quite a lot of demand. In some cases, it leads to us setting up a foundation, which we can do in certain jurisdictions around the world, or setting up a vehicle and dealing with the lawyers and helping them with the whole process. So that's the getting started bit. And the other reason
using external advisors or consultants, is that your question? If you
I'll just answer
you want
the
to
second
okay.
part, and then I'll go to the other question. The other, so half of it is getting started, more or less. The other ones are more people who've been involved and doing bits and pieces here and there, or sometimes they are already doing impact investing and sustainable, but they have a question about, am I having the right impact? Am I really having impact? And how do I get the next generation? So those are the 2 other sides of things that come into their demand. And in terms of collaborating with others, we only do the high-level strategic part. I personally am not going to write the grants management system for one of our clients. At that point, we do refer them. Again, not to one independent investor, but we always provide 3, and then they make their choice.
Because you have to be objective also.
It's always people that we've worked with before and that we know. So we do send them to other specialists in the field. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned the next generation. We did not go into that today, but maybe it's an idea for the next year panel, because I'm sure there's a lot of development with how to get the next generation on board. Yeah. Maybe another question. Yes, please.
En er was ook nog eentje daar straks achterin.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Leif Waller. I work for KPMG East Africa within our Department for International Development Advisory Services. So I thank you for sharing all your experiences. Sylvia, you mentioned that it's difficult when your clients come asking for impact investments. It's also interesting to hear to what degree is that discussion about making financial return, or is it actually about making social impact investment too?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So if you look at who are the biggest investors in impact investing right now, it's not actually the private individuals or the philanthropists, it's usually the pension funds. Those are the ones that are leading the charge in terms of actual real impact investing. Now, it's difficult for a couple of reasons. For impact investing to work, it needs a lot more management and supervision than any regular investment, because by definition, you are trying to also measure the social impact, however you want to define it. Therefore, it needs more active management, right? And usually the funds on impact investing tend to be very small. So a couple of the funds that UBS had in previous years managed to raise 50 million. Now, 50 million may sound like a huge amount of money, but it's peanuts for an industry that works in the trillions, right? Now, why is it difficult? Because, for example, one of them was for small and medium enterprises in sub-Saharan Africa, and to sell a product like that, 50 million took so much work. A bank like UBS and the majority of banks are not set up to do relatively small investments. They are set up for big products that you can, run through the whole system. That's why it is a little bit challenging. So there is, in theory, demand, but in practice, there's not enough products, or at least the people who have the products cannot put them on the platform of the big banks to reach.
What about the ABN AMRO?
Does that make sense?
Do you? Yeah. Opportunity. What ABN AMRO do you?
Yeah, I can really relate actually to Sylvia saying, and just to add to this, like last year we had also during our event one theme on impact investment, and we just spent at least an hour figuring out what everyone was. What their definition was of impact investment. And I just found out that a lot of philanthropists, at least, actually just mean organizations with working on strong business principles, and really that they're really clear on their social impact. But that's not really the way we would define impact investment, but I see it blurs a bit the discussion. So it's really important to get that first clear.
Oh, thank you for that. And I think there was one more hand, and then we need to wrap up. We have a few more minutes. Was there another question in the back?
I understand what you say is that the pension funds are sort of making more impact now than sort of private philanthropies.
What are the pension funds doing? We actually had an interesting discussion about that yesterday in this field of
I'm
the
just
impact.
saying that the biggest investors in impact investing funds tend to be the pension funds, not necessarily the foundations. Many foundations do not even look at sustainable investing. They still have this big division between how you make the funds. Even the Gates Foundation, which is one of the largest or the largest in the world, until recently, in their guidelines, the only restriction was against tobacco. Because their idea was that we separate how we make the money completely from what the causes we're given.
Yeah, I heard from the former stock exchange director, Bengt Rydén, that Sweden now has accomplished what they want to do with the löntagarfonderna and through the pension funds. In Sweden wanted to make a fund for all the employers, but they voted it down. But now, through the pension funds, we have so much collective savings that big investors like...
Well, maybe this is something we can discuss over lunch. I think we're going a little bit aside, but thank you for your...
It's interesting because what we do with our collective savings is also something that's needed to be addressed.
So we're passionate about the philanthropy advice, and we have banks here in the room that maybe are starting already, or we would like them to start. And we have NGOs in the room that would like to get in contact with you as well. So could I have a last tip, Sylvia, maybe for the people who would like to start philanthropy services?
Yeah, for that I would say that philanthropy is very clearly good for business. However, you should not treat it like a business. And I leave you with that
nice
thought.
words.
I leave you with
write that
thought.
down. That's a very good wrap up. Thank you. And Jasmijn?
Yeah, and I would also say that if you really want to start something similar in Sweden, then I think it's really important that you not only start with internal people, but really hire people with a background or a career in the charity sector, because it's a value-driven, it's value-based, and we are in this business setting, but so that's very important to hire people from the philanthropic sector, and also to really get your bankers to understand what it is about, because internal support is key, and it's something you continuously have to focus on, to have this internal support to do your work.
Yeah, I really believe in the philanthropy services by banks. That's why we set up this network in the Netherlands. At first, the banks were looking at each other. Well, we're all competitors, and, we cannot work together. But it's working out very, very nicely. And maybe we can make it a global network. And I would really like to invite Swedish banks and institutions also to join us, because it's so important. Research in the UK has showed that if philanthropists receive professional advice, they give 17 times more. This research has just come out, Philanthropy Impact. We're actually doing a meeting about it next week in Amsterdam, if anybody's interested. So very important topic.
May I add just to the role of Jacqueline, which she's an independent advisor, but she brings together 4 charity desks or philanthropy services in the Netherlands. And also internally, people were questioning us, like, why are you going to work together with your competitors? But actually, it works out really well, because she does actually something we can't do. But we just share best practices, and we also promote the field of philanthropy, and thereby we see that there's just more demand for it in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you very much, Jasmijn, and thank you very much, Sylvia. I think it was a great panel discussion. And I hope you will go home with some new ideas. And also that only 2% said they wanted to have fun, but I hope it was also fun to listen at us. So thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Very interesting.
Oh, good.
Very interesting. And I think you just made us all want to change professions.